Okay, so we're on Vav Amud Bet, but we just remind ourselves on Vav Amud Aleph, about 6 lines at the bottom, we lined up the two sides. What was the Olah that was in the wilderness? Was it an Olah Riyah?
Right.
Right. This is the psukim that were found.
Kaf Daled,
right.
Per Kaf Daled, Pasuk Kei.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. It says here it is. Okay.
Yishlach et Narei B'nai Yisrael v'Ya'alu Alot v'Yisbechuz V'Achut Shlamim L'Hashem Parim.
Correct.
Strange language
altogether. So there are a few copies if you don't have it from last week. I need a copy. I just one copy myself. Good. So there's one pasuk that I bolded up. It's 24:5. Vayishalach et Narei B'nai Yisrael v'Ya'alu Alot. Okay, so they bring shlamim and they bring olot. Okay, which Gemara wants to know.
I'm sorry, I seem to really have misplaced. I got the wrong. Oh, here it is.
Okay, all right.
Got it.
We're good.
Yeah.
Okay, just look at the bolded pasuk. So the machloket was whether this olah that they brought in the wilderness was what would be considered the olah riyah, which we're talking about in our discussions here, which is brought when you come on a pilgrimage festival, and this ostensibly takes place on Shavuos, day before Shavuos, close enough to Shavuos, even though the temple's not built, or would we consider this an olat to Tamid, which is brought every single day, which also does not happen at this point as far as we know. It is found listed in when they build the Mishkan or after the Mishkan in Parshas Sefer, Parshas Pinchas, right, and also maybe Vayikra.
Is it translated right?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Well,
this is probably the old JPS translation.
Yeah, because they try Purim should be bulls, not oxen.
All right.
What's an ox? What's an ox?
All right, we're going to leave the oxen and the bulls, otherwise we won't get to this. Okay.
An ox is with the okay, we got.
No, I'll tell you later.
Okay. Very strange parak in the first place.
Correct. Okay. Now, last week we did Beit Shammai, Rav Elazar, and Rabbi Yishmael. Okay, and the reason for Rabbi Yishmael was that it says. It's a machlokas whether there was klolos were given at Sinai, and the protos were then given at Ol Moed.
Right.
Rabbi Kiva says it was all given at Sinai. So the opinion of Rabbi Yishmael is that all the laws that come up later on are only given later on. And if that's the case, so the laws that are given later on talk about how you're going to skin and take apart the different parts of the Olat to Tamid. How is it possible that they gave an Olat to Tamid before Sinai, and they only learned how to skin it and give the different pieces off later on?
Right.
There, ergo, it couldn't have been an Olat Tamid. It had to be the Olat Riyah, which was burned completely. Okay, you can burn. It's easy to burn completely. So that's the Gemara's. That's how Rabbi Yishmael learned that the Olah that was given before Sinai or at Sinai is an Olat Riyah. That's the Gemara talked about that. So I'm only mentioning this because the Gemara is going to kind of now turn it around. So we had Beit Shammai, Rabbi Elazar, and Rabbi Yishmael, and then on the opposite side we had Beit Hillel, we had Rabbi Akiva, and we had Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Okay, so Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai argued in the same in our Mishnah, or based upon what around our Mishnah. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yishmael, and Rabbi Akiva seemed to argue together, and Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yossi Aglili were different machloksim. So the one we didn't do, we're really up to on Vav Amud Bet. And I apologize, we're in the middle of the Masechta, we took the 2-week break, right? But let's see if we can pull ourselves into it. So we're going to start Rabbi Yossi Aglili. So if you want to look, it's 2, 4, I'm counting from the top on Vav Amud Bet, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, I lost my place, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 lines from the top. The 13th line from the top, the Gemara said, Beit Hillel Hadi Amaran, Rabbi Akiva Hadi Amaran. Okay, so Beit Hillel was brought in the Mishnah or the Brisa opposing Beit Shammai. Rabbi Akiva was brought opposing Rabbi Yishmael, so we already did those. The one we haven't mentioned, we haven't learned, is about Rabbi Yossi Aglili, who is going to be the third one who lines up to say that it's an Olat to Tamid. It was not an Olat Riyah. So let's make sure we have this all in our minds. According to Rabbi Yossi Aglili, we have to prove, where does Rabbi Yossi Aglili say that the Olah that they brought here was the Olat Tamid? How does he know that? Okay, so Rabbi Yossi Aglili, the Tanya, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, Omer, Shalosh, and this is a brisa that compares the different karbanos that were brought in the Beis Hamikdash. Remember, there's Olas Riyah, there's Shalmei Chagiga, and then there's Shalmei Simcha. Okay, let's just talk about, just review ourselves what they are. The Olas Riyah was brought for coming to the Beis Hamikdash, right? We assume that you brought it once, and that was it. Right, even the Gemara we'll probably won't get to it today.
Once on this occasion.
Once on that visit to the Beis Hamikdash. The Gemara will entertain a possibility that maybe if you went back to the Beis Hamikdash next day, you need to bring another one. Okay, just putting that on the table. The next one is Shalmei Chagiga, which you got to eat as well. Right, that's a celebratory sacrifice. So that once again also was brought. And then you have Shalmei Simcha, which were additional sacrifices to make sure that you really had meat. In other words, it's like saying that you want to make sure there's enough meat on the barbecue to go around for the Yom Tov, so you brought Shalmei Simcha. So that's a third.
How is it different from the other one?
It's called a different carbon. No, Shalmei.
Same type.
Well, because I'll tell you what, because it doesn't really look like you have to bring a Shalmei Simcha. If you were in the Beis Hamikdash, you wanted to celebrate, you brought Shalmei Simcha. If you had enough meat, you could be a Shalmei Simcha. Gemara is going to discuss whether if I'm bringing in the Darim, let's say I had a vow to make and bring.
Right.
Can I use some of that money as my Shalmei Simcha? Right? Because I made a vow to bring a carbon.
Right.
So can I take that and let's assume I have to add a little bit of new money. I don't have to buy a whole new animal.
Right.
Right. So I can add, let's say, 10% on the top.
Yeah.
And use the money that was already allocated because I'm celebrating.
Absolutely.
Right. Meat is meat. So that's what Shalmei. So Shalmei Simcha looks like it's an additional sacrifice to ensure that I'm really in the meat, right? Meat and potatoes. So this is the third carbon. So at any rate, so the Gemara, so Rabbi Yosef Glili wants to compare the three karbanos, and it says each of them is a little different than the other. So this has nothing to do right now with the psukim here, but one of the differences he's going to talk about is one of them is brought here. Rabbi Yosef Glili, the Tanya, Rabbi Yosef Glili, Shalosh mitzvos and Savi Yisrael Balos L'Regel, the three different mitzvos, three different karbanos that the Jews bring when they come to the Beis Hamikdash. Riyah, Olas Riyah, which is burnt up completely, Chagiga, Shalmei Chagiga, and Simcha, Shalmei Simcha. And each one is different. One of these is not like the others. Yesh b'riyah mashen kemishteyam, yesh b'chagiga mashen kemishteyam, yesh b'simcha mashen kemishteyam. So each of them is a little different than the other two in one respect at least. Which is, yesh b'riyah shem b'shteyam, the carbon riyah is different than the other two, sharia ola kula gavoa. It's complete. It's burnt up completely. And ola means it's completely ola. It goes completely up. It's completely consumed. Nobody gets to eat anything. Who gets to eat it? Kaviyachol. It's a sacrifice to God. Okay, whatever that means. Doesn't mean that God needs meat. It means we are trying to bring a donation sacrifice in the same way that we understand what's important for us. We're comparing it to God. It's pretty much what it is, but it's completely consumed. So right. So you could say, or in probably other places, the Gemara says that God eats it. It's completely consumed by the altar. So He's giving it to God. Right? No one gets it really.
It says Mashem in many places, but we
correct. Mashen and Mishtem. The other two karbanos were eaten partially or mostly by the people who brought it. Yesh b'chagiga mashen v'shtehem. Karban chagiga has got something the other two doesn't have. Here it comes. Chagiga yeshnof ne'adibor mashen kemishteyim. The carbon chagiga existed before Sinai, which is which case? Is the only case that exists. The only carbon we know the Jewish people are bringing before Sinai. It's taking place right before Sinai, which the other two do not. All right, and yesh b'simcha. And the carbon Shalmei Simcha has what the other two don't. Simcha noheges b'nashim u'v'nashim Mashen came b'shteihem. Okay, Mashen came b'shteihem. So the Shalmei Simcha is really for men and women. Everybody has to eat. The more people you have, the more meat you want to make sure they have. So therefore, the other two are really only for males to bring.
So the women could eat Chagiga or they couldn't? Maybe they didn't have a mitzvah to bring it.
I guess there wasn't a mitzvah to bring it. This is a mitzvah for them to bring it. So they can be the one to bring the sacrifice. They can be the one to offer the sacrifice. Same way like women have the mitzvah of Hanukkah. Right now it's Hanukkah. The next big brouhaha at the Kotel is going to be who lights the menorah the first night. Just tipping you off right now.
Okay. Give a tip.
I don't have the tip, but the tip is there are women who say we want to light, because the first night they call up all the mechubadim to light them Neros Chanukah at the big menorah at the kotel, and it's always been male dominated. The women saying they're right. They say, look, it's our mitzvah too.
Our mitzvah too. Why should
Afin hoyubo sani. So we'll see how that plays out. Stay tuned. They don't have enough trouble with Palestinians. You have to have, okay. Now, at any rate, Mashen came b'shteihem. So consequently, this is the source, the last of the three on each side, that says that it's going to be the Ola here is Olas Hatamid. Olas.
No, so I'm saying that's my question: is where does he stand? Because the Chagiga, it wasn't burned completely, so that would make it not a Tamid. Eh?
So that would make
only because remember we said we didn't have the rules of the Tamid yet, wasn't that what we said before? Like the Tamid, you had to cut up here and this and that. I mean, that's I'm looking where he stands in the argument. He's definitely not saying it's a tummy, right?
Right.
So I guess the Chagiga, well, I don't know.
So what's the proof? So what's the proof for Rabbi Yosef Glili that I'll tell you what the proof is. The proof is that the Korban Chagiga, here's the proof. The Korban Chagiga is the only thing that was brought before Sinai, which means nothing else was brought before Sinai. Therefore, this cannot be an Olas Re'iyah. Right?
Gotcha. Absolutely.
Okay. So, it's because the only thing. So, what would this be?
Well, he says it's a Chagiga, no?
Right. So the only other thing you could no. In other words, here we go again. The Korban Chagiga is different than the other two, because the Korban Chagiga was brought before the Beis Hamikdash. How do you know before Sinai? How do you know it was brought before Sinai? Because the pasuk talks about Vayizbechu Zvachim Shlamim.
Right.
That's the Shlamim. But it also means the only thing brought before Sinai was the Shalmei Chagiga, which is identified in this pasuk. When the pasuk says, and they brought Olos,
could only be.
It's not Olas Riyah, because you see the Olas Riyah was not brought before Sinai, because the only thing brought before Sinai was the Shalmei Chagiga. So therefore, the Olos that's being brought is a different Olah. Which Olah is going to be? Olas Tamid. Which other communal offering could there be? Which other offering is brought on an ongoing basis? Olas Tamid. But it's not going to be the Olas Riyah. So the proof is more, it's not an Olas Riyah. It must be a different kind of Olah. Which one is it going to be? Olas Tamid. Because the only thing that's brought before Sinai is the Chagiga, and that clearly is what everybody identifies with when it says Vayizbechu Zvachim Shlamim. Shlamim is Shalmei Chagiga, or Shalmei something, and we're saying that's now the Shalmei Chagiga. That's the proof of Yosef Glili. So that's his brisa. He doesn't explain why his brisa is correct. That's the law, and that's the source of Rabbi Kiva.
He's saying it's an Olas Tummy, right?
Correct.
Gotcha.
Right. Okay. Now, so we finished up all six. The one side point that the Gemara deals with that's going to create a problem is we said that Rabbi Shmuel holds that the Olah here is the Olas Riyah. He's one of the three who says it's the Olas Riyah, because he said it can't be an Olas Tamid. Let's play out the logic again. It can't be an Olas Tamid, because how is it possible that they're going to bring before Sinai an Olah? They don't know how to cut it up and give the different parts. That only happens afterwards, and Rabbi Shmuel says that at Sinai they only learned the klolos.
Right.
And later on, when the Torah writes about bringing karbanos, that's when they learn about how to cut up the pieces for the Olas Tamid.
Right.
So therefore, which carbon could this Olah be? The Olah is burned up completely, which is Olas Riyah, and it's burned completely as it is. It's not cut up into different pieces and skinned and so forth. So it must be an Olas Riyah. That's the proof that Rabbi Shmuel holds it has to be an Olas Riyah. It has to be an Olas Riyah, correct. So the Gemara has a question on Rabbi Shmuel, and just so that you know where this is going to go, and the Gemara is going to say, you're right, we made a mistake. Scratch Rabbi Shmuel from the record. Okay? Even though we listed 3 and 3, Rabbi Shmuel could actually be on the other side as well. Okay? But let's go through the question and answer. So Rabbi Shmuel, my time a kamuk misleika Beishamai. Why does Rabbi Shmuel go like Beishamai to say that it's Olas Riyah? Because he doesn't explain himself really. We're just making that assumption. If you were to say the other way, that the olah that's brought in Sinai is the olah tamid miika needed to make kar laboy hafshiv nituach labasov boy hafshiv nituach is any carbon that you bring it one way, you bring it the wrong way first, and then later when you learn how to bring it, you have to skin it, you have to cut it up in different pieces. How's that possible? That's the Gemara, and that's what the logic what we said. Viha Rabbi Yossi Glili di Omar. Rabbi Yossi Glili said, "Ola shekrivi soba midba ola satamin avoy." Rabbi Yossi Glili himself told us the ola, right? Well, the Rabbi Yossi Glili that we just learned, not Rabbi Shmuel. What did Rabbi Yossi Glili say? This carbon here, that's being brought, is olas tamid, because he said it could be an olas riyah. Because if you say that Rabbi Yossi Glili said this is the olas tamid, so what must Rabbi Yossi Glili say? That they didn't know what to do, and they only learned it later on. Because Rabbi Yossi Glili said, "Ola shikri b'suva midbar eina tuuna hamshif nituach." Rabbi Yossi Glili said it's an olas. This is olas tamid. He said this olas tamid didn't require being cut up and quartered. They only learned it later on. Because later on they learned it. So Rabbi Yossi Glili argues. We just learned it, that this ola is the olas tamid, and yet Rabbi Yossi Glili himself says that this ola that was brought, which is the olas tamid, they didn't know how to cut it up, because they only learned how to cut it up when? Later on, when they built the Omar. So what do you see? You see it's possible to posit that this carbon is the olas tamid, which was not cut up, right? And later on they learned how to cut, but this was still an olas tamid. Rabbi Yishmael's argument is, this can't be an olas tamid, because according to my viewpoint, they only learned how to cut it up later on. Right. They only learned how to cut it up later on. This they don't know how to cut up. It can't be the olas tamid. But you see, Rabbi Yossi Glili says it can be an olas tamid that was brought different ways. They did it whole here as an olas tamid, and later on, a year later, they learned how to cut it up. That's when they started bringing it cut up. So the premise of Rabbi Yishmael, that the Gemara bases itself, that Rabbi Yishmael must be saying this is an olas riyah, because he only learned later on the pratos, the sub rules, how to cut it up, which is only after Al Moed. And if they didn't know it now, it could be an olas tamid because you couldn't do it one way now and one way later. Rabbi Yossi Glili says not true. Rabbi Yossi Glili, who says that it is olas tamid, says they did it one way now, and later on when they learned how to cut it up, they cut it up. So the premise that led us to say that Rabbi Shmuel can't say that is wrong, or doesn't have to be. Did everybody get it? Should I say it again?
Yeah, if you accept.
So but you see that Rabbi Yossi Glili says it is possible that this is olas tamid which was not cut up, and they only learned how to cut it up a year later with the Omoed, but it's still olas tamid. So if he could say it, Rabbi Shmuel could say the same thing.
He could.
So the only way that we argued about Rabbi Shmuel was because we have Rabbi Shmuel. Rabbi Shmuel himself doesn't talk about the olas tamid. Rabbi Shmuel talks about whether klolos and pratos were given at Sinai.
True.
The machlokas Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Kiba has nothing to do with this carbon. It's the application of the Gemara. Rabbi Shmuel says before Sinai, or at Sinai, they learned the rules. Later on, general rules. Later on, they learned the details. It all moed, or rosmo, whatever it is. If that's what you said, so the Gemara says if that's the case, must be this could not be a sacrifice brought later on because they only learned later on how to do it. How could they know? How could they do it wrong if they're going to do it right later on? So the Gemara says, but you see that Rabbi Yossi Glili says not a problem. Whatever they did here, they did it one way because they only learned the klolos. The pratos which are found in Vayikra and Bamidbar changed how it was done. It was done differently later on. But this is still olas tamid. If it works Rabbi Yossi Glili, it could work Rabbi Shmuel.
We don't like how critical everything is. I mean, if you put this in, it's embedded. If you put it in, leave it out, you get killed. Everything is so specific.
Correct. It's very, very tough religion.
So for all those years...
No. It means to say that things changed. Things change all the time in Judaism. So it's not so radically to say that.
Where Rabbi Yossi really gets this.
I mean, we don't have a Beis Hamikdash. We do things outside the Beis Hamikdash. We do all kinds of takaras Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai made. And the fact that this is right before Sinai means they could have done something that was a little different. We don't find them ever bring another carbon ola until they build the Mishkan. So the assumption would be, well, if they learned how to do it later on, a year later, then this can't be the same thing they did because they didn't learn how to do it. Rabbi Yeres said this is not true. Now they did one like a proto Olas Talmud, and a year later they did all this. Once they started a year later to do it, they do it all every day.
They did it the right way.
Not only they do it the right way, they do it without break, without their continuous. Every day they're bringing two Olas Talmuds without stop. Now they only did it once. It's a one-time deal. So in fact, I don't even know if it's called Olas Talmud. Is the argument that maybe they did it once they started? Now they did it Talmud, or they're doing the Ola as if Kilo it's an Ola's Talmud for a one-time event that later on to be instilled multiple times. So you're right. It does sound unusual, and that's the argument that if you do it this way now, you do it the same way later. You do it one way later, you do it the same way now.
We learned
but it's not necessarily true. And the key here is Rabbi Yishmael does not talk about this pasuk.
True.
This is the Gemara's application. The Gemara is understanding Rabbi Shmuel. The Gemara is saying Rabbi Shmuel says that Klalos were given at Sinai, Pratos given later on. Not so. Therefore, they didn't learn how to do this yet. Rabbi Kiva says no, they did learn, even though they're only mentioned later on in Bamidbar. At Sinai, they learned everything. So God told them exactly how to cut it up.
I was going to say, because we did learn, they said to him Vahelach, right? He said it went on right after. It continued right away.
It does appear from the actual Lashon that this is actually before Moshe went up, or just as he's going up.
Correct. It's all part of the same big bubble of Sinai. You're right. It looks like it's proto-Sinai. Correct. You could argue anything. The whole thing is strange, we said.
Yeah.
But the Gemara is assuming for now this is, in fact, it calls it Lifnei Hadibor.
Right.
Lifnei Hadibor.
Yeah.
Okay. So to some extent, Lifnei Hadibor, the Gemara is equating, that's the same thing as saying Klolos at Sinai. Even though Jack is correct, you could argue, the Gemara does not take that tack, you could argue that this carbon is completely different than anything that follows, because they haven't even gotten to Sinai. Even if they learn Klolos at Sinai, even if they learn Klolos and Pratos at Sinai, this is before they got to Sinai.
Right.
This is the day before.
Absolutely.
Okay. But the Gemara does not argue that.
It says here in the Chumash that actually this is all bound up in the question of Ein Muktam Muchar Torah, right? And it says here that as we learn in the commentary, the Talmud supports this view, that is, according to Rashi, that these verses occurred before the Ten Commandments were given.
Right.
Yeah,
and that's correct. Once again, if you're following the order of the chapters, this occurs after Mishpatim.
Yeah.
The Torah is given in Parshas Yisro, right? However, and here's what I pointed out, it's hard to imagine, well, nothing's hard to imagine, but it's hard for me to accept that this is happening after Sinai, because after Sinai, the Jewish people are not celebrating. Moshe stays up on the mountain. He stays up on the mountain, he's up there 40 days, people don't know what happened to him, and they lose hope, and they celebrate the golden calf. And then Moshe comes out and breaks the tablets, and then we go through it all over again. So it's even hard, and then it's even harder to assume that this is taking place. And here's the other part. And if you say that, you haven't solved Mukta Muchamar Torah, because you haven't gone to the Egel Azov in the order of the Parshios.
Right.
So it doesn't really fit anywhere.
And it's clear that he goes up and gets the Torah.
Yes, correct.
Very, very, very clear.
I agree. Okay. What's actually important here is this is a very important piece of very important pasuk, because it ties into what type of carbon this would have been brought. How do you identify the carbon?
Especially since the then Moshe went up.
But the bottom line is, focusing on the small part for a moment. The bottom line is this whole style, by the way, that you present one machloket, and then after you present one machloket, you say, you know what? The following people all line up with the same machloket. So that's not an uncommon style in the Gemara. So you have Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel. We're going to say Beit Shammai says this, and also Rabbi Shmuel, and also Rabbi Lazar say the same thing like Beit Shammai. And then Beit Hillel, we also got Rabbi Kiva, Rabbi Yosef Glida, they say the same thing. And sometimes, in many of these cases, it's not simply get rid of Rabbi Shmuel. In many of these cases, they'll say like two people fall off. It's not the same machlokas. Remember, this is how the Talmud argues. Talmud argues from examples from the small to the large. So Gemara will say that you have machloket A, which ties to machloket B is the same as machloket A. Machloket C is the same as machloket A. And Gemara says, no. B and C are something completely different. It looks that way, but the real argument is something completely different. It's not the same.
Isn't that also because of the historical development here? Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai were 2 or 3 generations prior to Rabbi Akiva.
Yeah.
And
so it's good to have machloket that other people have argued about. Correct. Right. It makes you feel good that you weren't the first guy to say it. Yeah, I know we don't follow Beit Shammai, but wouldn't you like it someone to say that's Beit Shammai's opinion? You are Beit Shammai. You say, I'm a Beit Shammai. And that's what the Gemara kinds of feels. It kind of tries to bring things together. It doesn't work always. So what's unusual here probably is the fact that most of the lineups actually stand. It's only Rabbi Shmuel who gets slammed out. And by the way, it doesn't mean necessarily he gets slammed out. It means you don't really know.
No, we don't know. He's just saying maybe he thought of that.
Maybe this, maybe that.
And Rabbi Yishmael, if I'm not mistaken, he was a Kohen in the Churban, right? Wasn't he? He was from the previous generation. He was a Kohen.
I'm not sure. Maybe, but Rabbi Shmuel Skana Kohen was he? Skana Kohen is the same guy. I don't know.
I don't know. I just what I remember.
I don't remember. Yeah. Okay.
No, but Rabbi Yosef really is not disagreeing with Rabbi Yishmael, who says the klal was given down, the prat is given down.
All Rabbi Yisrael is saying is that the fact that the carbon itself was different, could be different before, and after, it still be the same type of typology of carbon. So the Gemara, just to kind of wrap this up, so the Gemara says the Tanya Rabbi Siglam Allah Shigri so by min by no to have shivan tuach v'shein have shivan tuach el mi ov mo ve'ela. The Gemara's conclusion is boom Sami Mikan Rabbi Shmuel. Okay, Sami Mikan comes up about less than 10 times in the Shas, but it does come up in other places where the Gemara says, get him out of here. Okay, this opinion is wrong, or it's not the same guy, or the guy is wrong. Okay. Sami is to remove.
Classic rejection.
Classic rejection. The actual word is sometimes you'll find it as a verb. Gemara will say asmaya. Sami is delete. So Gemara will say asmaya. Should I remove it? Should I delete it? The Gemara will of course answer no. Of course you don't want to remove it. Here's how to get out of the question. But there's about it's less than 10 times I think in Shas you find the term Sami Mikan. Okay.
It's not really a yufta.
It's not.
No, what it's saying is
this guy doesn't have anything to contribute to this.
Exactly.
Right. In other words, it's not even Rabbi Shmuel himself. It's how we interpreted Rabbi Shmuel.
Exactly.
We're saying the machloka doesn't line up, or his opinion doesn't line up. Nothing wrong with his opinion, but the svara is not the same svara.
Exactly. The opinion he gave, everybody agrees with the fact.
All right. Now, so there's a couple of small pieces to finish this up. This is easy actually. Well, everything's easy in one form or another. This is actually easy. Boy Rabbi Chisda, Hai Krohech Iksiv, the pasuk that we've been talking about. We're going back and forth with this pasuk for this time and the time before. So there's just one little question. He wants to know where to put the punctuation. When it says, Vaishalach Asnari b'nei Yisrael vayalu olos. Okay, so we have a comma. We have actually a semicolon here. So the question is, when they're bringing olos, are these kvasim? Are these lambs? That's what it means. What do you bring for the olah? What is this animal?
Kvasim.
Right, kvasim. No, that's the question. Okay. Right. So the question really is here. It's based upon, if you look at the pasuk. Look at the pasuk. We'll explain in 1 minute. The last word on the pasuk is parim. Is parim modify the second carbon, which was the zvachim, or does parim modify the first one as well?
The olos.
Right. In other words, is it that olos, they brought olos which were parim and they brought zvachim that were parim, or they brought olos, which is usually going to be kvasim because that's completely burnt up, burning up.
Totally ambiguous. You can't.
Correct.
You can't tell at all.
That's why Boy Rav Chisda asked the question. What does it mean? You say like this, such a sidebar, right? But the answer is, this is how the Gemara goes. Right? Boy Rav Chisda, do you read it? Vaishalach asnari b'nei Yisrael vayalu olot. That's end quote. Which are kvasim. Back to the quote, Hashem, Parim, and Parim is only the modifier, the explainer on the second half. Odilma, Idividi Parim, you read the whole thing together. Okay? That Parim refers and refers to both. So the Gemara of course says, who cares? Lamai nafkamina. Okay? So Lamai nafkamina, because once again, because this carbon, whatever the carbon was, I'm sorry? It's a one-time deal. Whatever it is, no, you try to associate, oh, that's real, that's Talmud, but it's like it's never going to happen again. So the Gemara says, what's important? So this for the Bali Kriya. Mulmai nafkamina marzuch omar lepisuk ta'amim. Okay, how are you going to read it?
So how do we do it?
Yeah, because not
We actually read it like it's different. So Vayishalach esnarei bnei Yisrael vayalu olos vayizbechu zvachim shlomim l'Hashem porim. So I think the Asnachta is after olos, or is that olos? Which means to say that you have two separate halves of the pasuk, which means the first half is not necessarily parim. Could be parim, but it's not. So if it takes a stop there, it's going to be a usual thing of what you bring olos. Correct?
Yeah.
the usual.
Yeah.
The usual.
That's how our piece of Talmud is. Okay?
Yeah.
But you could say, of course, that it's just being ambiguous. It didn't say what it was. Right?
Well, since we have no real idea what it was, it's all
Since we're on this, please excuse this question, it's a little off topic. Why does it say just nadav avihu?
I don't know.
In the first pasuk, and it says it twice.
Yeah.
Ve'al Moshe Amar Alei El Hashem Atav Aaron V'Nadav Avihu V'Shivim Zivnei Yisrael.
So why is it that Nadav and Avihu are the only ones who participate? With
And again, Paraket. Vayal Moshe Aaron Nadav Avihu V'Shivim Zivnei Yisrael.
Correct?
This is
Like what happens?
Well, without getting off the topic, because I don't know I can answer it fully, there's I forget where the Medrash says that the reason, this whole thing of looking at God, Vayirud El Yisrael, Vaychazu, right? That the fact that they looked where they shouldn't have been looked was eventually paid back, that they would be punished when they came in with Aaron. And they, whatever they did, one of the things they did wrong was this is payback time, this is the pay up time for what they did earlier. It's an interesting approach. It means that God did not want to create the destruction at this point as they're about to go up to Har Sinai. Pomp and ceremony had to go on. This would be completely destructive. If suddenly the fire comes down and consumes people, there would be a big turnoff for going no further with Kabbalah Torah. So God says, I'll find the time to do it when there's also some consecration, which happens when Aaron comes in with his two sons. Which, by the way, which is one explanation, which means that God keeps a reckoning. And as we try to understand the mysterious ways of God, it's never like there's a cause and effect, but the cause and effect are not always put together. That makes it more complicated. But God keeps a running tab, so to speak, all along. Okay? That's one answer. But the point of it is, Nadav and Avihu are the only sons of Aaron mentioned here, and they're the only sons mentioned in Parshas Tzav and Shmini. Correct?
Yeah.
Elazar and Itamar are the B team.
Right. And they're the successors.
Correct. They're the successors, but the successor is the B team.
For sure.
Right. The A team couldn't play anymore because they got burnt. So they bring in the replacements. They bring them up from the minor leagues. That's what you get the impression.
What happened to nothing happened to the other people who went?
So not mentioned. So the question is what? So the question is who looks and who it refers to. The whole thing is very difficult. Okay. So back here. So one answer is what's the difference whether parim and kvasim, tami and mikra. By the way, you see the Gemara feels that reading the trup is correct. Is very important.
Yes,
Right?
it is.
It is.
For sure.
Okay.
Because sometimes it's a commas, like we have
Now,
commas.
you could argue, of course, the piece of ta'amim doesn't really mean the trup as we know it. In fact, we don't even know how our trup really goes because every community has a different way to say it. The trup is really simply a way to create punctuation.
Yes, yes.
Right.
Correct. But Sof Pasuk is stock.
Correct. And so
And
it's not.
Etnachta is
Correct.
semi-stock.
Correct.
But that was all standardized several hundred years later.
Correct. Right, and the only thing you can say is our way in which we read it, whether we or Sfaradim, Ranchi Mizrach, or anyone, is based upon the fact that there's a certain cadence to stop or to connect.
Sure.
Right. However you say Darga Tfir, it's clear the Darga word and the Tfir word go together. Right. So there's a whole chachma to know Tamei Mikra. I once tried to read about it. It's very complicated. The top of the Esnachta is called Kesarim. As in Kaisers or Caesars. There are in other words the different tamim are broken into the major players, which are major breakers, and then you got lesser players. It's almost like people with chess pieces. Everyone's got a different title, but you go down and the key is it's hard to sometimes know each of the lesser ones, but you really understand Esnacht and Sof Pasuk. Right.
How come the Sfardim have a different tune?
Because they speak differently and they sing differently. That's why.
Yeah.
It's all based upon how people you grew up in terms of sing-song and not sing-songing.
But an Esnach's got the same connotation for everyone.
The internet, you know what? If you ever hear as a foreigner speaking English, even if they have a terrific English, the intonation is not always correct. Right?
I happen to like this Friday.
Whatever, but I'm saying, so that's why their intonation reflects 40 different cadences. Okay, so one is that piece of Chamim. Second answer is Ravachabri Ravamar Lomar Hare Olai Ola Kaola Shekrivi Yisrael Bamidbar. So there's what's called neder and nedava, right? A neder means I have to bring a carbon, and nedava is I'm bringing this carbon. But this person thought he'd be a real chacham. He said, I'm going to bring a carbon like the carbon,
like
exactly like they brought back in the day. Okay. So now it's not, if he said this carbon, this animal, right? It's this animal. An animal refers to any animal, but an animal like this you'd have to find what it is.
Right.
So you have to know my parim have or kvasim have. So what's the answer? Teiku. We don't know. Okay. So the guy I don't know what the guy would do with him. Would he bring two carbonas or would he bring one carbon no carbonas? I'm not sure. Okay. But that's the end to that. Okay. Next piece. Tznan Hasam. This is a very famous Mishnah, and you will recognize it from the morning tefillah. At least some. It's not brought in completely. Eilad varm she'en lam shir. Okay. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. We're asleep. We say it in the morning. Right. Craig, say it every morning before brachas. Eilad varm she'en lam shir. The following items the Torah did not give a shir. But however, the Chachamim did give shiurim for these things. Okay, but in Torah there's no shiur. One is a peh. A peh is the corner of the field.
Yeah, they gave a shiur to peh?
So the Chachamim gave a shiur. It's 1/60th of the field. The corner is one. The corner is 1/60. At least.
Yeah.
Right. In other words, the corner itself could be a tiny corner. Could be one stalk.
Right.
Right.
That's not enough.
In Torah that is enough.
I'm saying the Torah for sure.
Right, but the Chazal came along and said, you know what, you're just cheating everybody. You're getting around the law. Therefore, we're going to make a shiur. And in the Chachamim, 1/60th of the field is the corner. Depending on how big the field is, will be one corner. You have to leave.
So you give 4 corners, so it's 4/60.
Means you have to leave one corner of the field unharvested.
But if the corner's too small, you got to take a big chunk.
Hang on.
We're talking about when you're harvesting your field.
Right, so peh is only 1 corner.
So did I.
No. There's leket, shikha, and peah.
Those are different things.
Right? They're different things, different types of forced tzedakah that you have to give when you harvest your field. Shikha is when you're collecting the sheaves or collecting the stalks. If up to 2 fall, you have to leave it behind. You can't go pick it up. That's shikha. That's leket, excuse me. Shikha is if you leave behind. Shikha is you leave behind a whole sheaf.
Sheaf, exactly.
Right?
A sheaf. You bundle it up.
Bundle the sheaf.
Because you're shicker.
No.
I remember it.
Right. Okay, now, and peah is you have to leave a corner of the field, one corner. How big is the corner? What makes the corner? So the Chazal came and say, when 60th min Torah, there is no shir. Next one is bikurim. And doesn't say how much. The Torah says v'lakachta me'rishis kol pri ha'adama. How much is rishis the first? So how much bikurim do you have to bring? I don't know. Bring one apple, one grape. Okay. And the answer is, and the Chachamim made a shir as well. V'harayon. Rayon is not. This is going to be a big machlok of what it means, but you already think it means the carbon olas riyah. Right, it has to do with riyah. Question whether it means the carbon riyah or it means you're coming. Okay, but that's what it refers. So you read this every day when you read Navi, you don't know what rayon is, right? And gemilas chasadim, also gemilas chasadim, doing acts of kindness. There's no minimum shir, and the Talmud Torah. And once again, Talmud Torah, there's no minimum shir, and so forth. Now, what does that mean? That's why when we say the Berachos of Torah, what's the first thing we do? After we say Berachos, so we say 3 short pieces of Torah. Because in other words, you can be Yotze Torah by just reading those 3. There's Psukim, there's Berachos Kohanim, there's the Mishnah of Elud Dvarim She'en Lam Shir, and then there's Eza Makom. There's what's this third one? No, there's one more. One's the Brisa, or is it not a Brisa? Okay. You say the Berachos of Torah, and then you say, right, Al Tzil Yadayim, Berachos of Torah. Right. The actual Mishnah is the Mishnah we just read, right? And then the Bryce is the continuation. So we all read it together, but it's really two separate things. Yivarechecha is Torah. And this Mishnah we just read is Mishnah, right? So Mishnah began Masechet Peah. It's also where it is the Mishnah here. It's quoted, and then we have this piece from Masechet Shabbos Kuf Chav Zayin. El Dvar She'adam Echel Barsam Alzev V'Karen Gas Lamba Kibbut Avayim Gas Chasad Mashkas V'Shmez etc. So that's we read them together. That is a brisa. That's a piece of Gemara. It's actually a brisa, but it's a piece of Gemara explaining what the Mishnah is, or related to the Mishnah we just learned.
My sitter says Harayon is in fact Korban brought up at the time of the Shlosh Regalim.
Good, because you
can't fulfill the mitzvah. Like it can't. There is a shear for Re'iyah.
I know.
Right.
It didn't say Re'iyah. It just said.
So it can't be a lot Re'iyah.
Right.
I'm saying
it didn't say all that. My sitter just said.
So I'll read you the article before we get to Gemara, because the Gemara is going to talk about it. It says, Mr. Article, Baharayon, the pilgrimage. Though the Torah ordains that a Jew visit the temple on each of the three festivals, Pesach, Shavuot, Sukkot, one may visit as often as he wishes. That's one interpretation. Alternatively, there is no set amount for the value of the Olas Riyah that one may bring at such times. So that's going to be the machlokas in the Gemara. So it's a little complicated machlokas, but it really is about going. Can I keep? In other words, if I go up into the Beis Hamikdash on first day Pesach, go back the second day, go back the third day, do I get 3 mitzvah stamps? Right? Or once I went up on the first day of Pesach, I may as well go home.
But Rabbi, I have to ask a question. My understanding of Shir, maybe that's the other way around, was always: is there a minimum amount? Not is there a maximum amount, but is there a minimum amount? How much matzah do you have to eat on?
Well, it could be it could be minimum. It also could be maximum in this case.
Yes, right. What you're saying, maximum.
Right. There is no shear. There is no maximum shear for matzah, probably.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't think that all these things you wouldn't be worried about what's the maximum.
Right, so the Gemara's going to talk. The Gemara's going to get into that. I'm just saying it's going to go back and forth. Just in terms of what exactly this refers to, is it the Karban Ola Riyah, or is it actually referring to going up oneself? Okay. I'm not sure we're going to finish this piece of Gemara. We'll go as far as we can. Okay, so just hold tight. So the Amar Rav Yochanan, in explaining this Mishnah, says Kisfurim Analomar. We thought to say, which we're going to find out is what we shouldn't say. We thought we should say. So it says Harayon ein lo shir lamala av yesho shir lamata. That really there is a maximum shear. There is no maximum shear, but there is, according to everybody, a minimal shear that you have to bring. Ad Shabbat, Rabbi Oshaya Rabbi v'limed, until Rabbi Oshaya Rabbi said Harayon ein lo shir lo lamala v'lo lamata. Okay, he says when it says no shear means no shear minimal and no shear maximum. Okay, that's the second opinion. And however, this Mishnah that we recite every day is really the opinion of who? We don't know.
We don't know.
Okay. Some anonymous Tanakama, Aval Chachamim Omrim, but the Chachamim say Haraya Ma Kesef Chagiga Shtei Kesef. Okay, so the Chachamim came along and said, no, really, there is a shear min Torah. That's what it means.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, my mistake. I'm wrong. No, I'm wrong. No, Rabbi Shai says there's no shear below, no shear above. Right. However, Chazal came along, the Rabbanan came along, doesn't mean Chachamim, it means the Rabbanan came along and said, we're going to make a minimum shear for Karban Riyah and Karban Chagiga. Really, Minat Torah, the same way there's no shear for the corner of the field, and Chazal came along and said it's 1/60th of the field. So too, Minat Torah, there's no minimum for bringing the Karban Olas Riyah. You could bring the tiniest animal. You could bring a mini animal.
How can the Rabbanim do this? This is clearly local tier. They added on.
No, they're telling you what you can't bring less than. They're not adding on anything.
Oh, but when you say the maximum, it is.
So it looks like the Chachamim are adding just the minimal.
No, they added the maximum too.
No. These are minimal
at least one.
You can bring the fattest animal in the world.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Not less than.
So they're saying that whatever you're going to eat, it's not like eating a hot dog. There's got to be some meat on the animal. Now, obviously, we're limited by the smallest amount of animal that they can bring, but still, you can bring a pretty small animal. So they came along to say this animal has to be worth. The Chagiga is 2 kesef, and the Riyah has to be more kesef. We saw, by the way, on this, there's a machloket Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, but the machloket Beis Shammai Beis Hillel is what exactly was the takon of the Chachamim on the Olas Riyah and the Karban Chagiga.
Right.
Okay, but Min HaTorah, Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, we say that you can bring whatever the smallest amount to do, but to be Otzazayin.
Right, but going back to the first line, Harayon, which I thought had to do with more korbanos, they seem to be talking it in only, the word rayon for them here is the korban re'iyah specifically, right? That's
the topic of discussion,
so
what the word riyah means.
Okay. The rayon, I'm saying what the word rayon.
What the word rayon
means, right?
Right, the chachamim look like they're referring to a korban.
Right, and specifically the
correct
korban riyah.
Right. Okay.
And we have to bring riyah on every one of the shlosh regalim, right?
Correct, right.
Gotcha.
So on this, the Gemara has a basic discussion. While there may be a minimal amount that you have to bring for the korban olas riyah and the olas and korban chagiga, the actual word that's listed here, ra'ayon, is maybe referring to coming to the Beis Hamikdash.
Right.
So Gemara takes a step back. After presenting that there's no shir min HaTorah, then the Chachamim came along and said there are minimal shirim for the korbanos. The Gemara says, wait, you know what? Maybe we're not even talking about korbanos.
Right.
So the Gemara says, my ra'ayon, what does ra'ayon mean? So Rabbi Yochanan amar riyas panim ba'zara, Reish Lakish amar riyas panim ba'karban. Okay, so the machlokas Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish, which the Gemara is going to spend quite a bit going back and forth because it's not that logical what it means, minimal and maximum number of times to be in the Beis Hamikdash, or minimal maximum number of bringing korbanos. Right. In other words, we talked about size. Right? But it looks like there's no shear. So no shear means I can do the mitzvah repeatedly.
Right.
Now, not some mitzvahs you can do repeatedly. You go into the sukkah, you come out of the sukkah, you forgot about the sukkah, you go back again. Right? But some mitzvahs you can. Once you took a little of an esrog, it's done. Right? Once you ate the matzah, the mitzvah's done.
Some are continual. You're right.
Right. Some mitzvahs are once and that's finished. You sound the shofar. And we have a minhag do 100 times, but you don't do 200 times. You're actually not allowed. You cannot say, well, I want to be a bigger tzaddik. I want to blow shofar 200 times in Rosh Hashanah. So it has to do with being ma'arveh the satan. The satan here's the too much. He kind of figures out what's going on. Okay, so we actually put the shofar away until we're blowing it for other people. But the bottom line is there are certain mitzvahs that can be done frequently, right? No one, I mean, and you probably can think of a number of examples as you go through it. Mitzvah berachas hamazon. Right? That's a mitzvah berachal v'soat bracha. So on Shabbos, what does it mean observing Shabbos?
I don't know. It's a continuous thing, isn't it?
Correct. So is it a mitzvah every moment of Shabbos, or is it a mitzvah every time you do a mitzvah? I'm not sure. But something like berachas hamazon is a good example. Every time you eat and you're satisfied, right, and you're still satisfied, you bench. How many meals do you eat a day? Some of you guys snack in the fridge all night, okay? How many real meals do you eat? 3 meals, 2 meals, 4 meals, I don't know. Right? So you can do multiple times berachas hamazon.
Or Liman Torah, for example.
Or Liman Torah, correct. Liman Torah is another mitzvah, right? Correct?
For men, for women, there is a limitation.
For
Liman Torah.
Is there?
But aren't they limited by time?
Oh, so maybe they're not obligated. Maybe they're not. They may not be obligated. So they may not be obligated in the Torah, correct? So they may not be obligated for the mitzvah of Torah, but if they learn, they get the mitzvah. It's not like Chagiga. Chagiga they're obligated to do. Right. So in other words, no. The Gemara feels there's a difference between males and females studying Torah.
Yeah, but is there a limit of time? And it doesn't say you have to study Torah this time or this minute or that minute.
It's not just one grammar, is it?
It isn't, but it's actually, I believe it's based on Vishinantam Lavanecha, Banecha V'Lovanosecha. It's one of the few cases that Banecha means only males, not females.
Used to be.
Yeah, used to be. No,
I'm looking, I'm thinking of some of the schools we have today in Yerushalayim here and everything.
I agree. Okay, yes.
Sorry.
Do you remember the RCA rabbi?
We go speak to our rabbi. Rabbi had very strong feelings about this.
There's a lot of girls going to school.
First was this rabbi's not. No one talked about her studying Torah.
Yeah, I'm talking just saying.
They were talking about putting out rabbis.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That's correct.
That's what I'm saying. Studying Torah seems to be
And by the way, this was decided many years ago by the RC. Nothing new was hatched by those who brought the resolution again. The people want to bring a resolution for political reasons. The resolution said nothing new, said nothing different from what was said many years ago.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Except bringing in the title.
Except that, well, more importantly, it probably rubbed the RCA more into the mud. That's all. So that's right. Anyways. Okay. You know what? Rav Shechter is coming this week. You should all come and ask him questions. Ask him questions about open orthodoxy. See what he says. Okay. But for those who have not heard Rav Shechter, by the way, I highly recommend you do hear him. If you do hear him, though, he doesn't speak loud.
Sit close.
Yeah, so sit close and save me a spot. No, so sit close. No, I'm being serious because many times people come you come late Friday night.
You sit in the back.
And you sit in the back. You probably won't hear it if you're sitting in the back. I don't know where they're going to set it up. Or even Shalashudas. Shalashudas, he will speak. He'll speak very well, I believe. He always does. And it's Chomer. He doesn't speak slowly. He speaks quickly. It's good material. But he does not project himself loudly. Okay? Word to the wise. Okay? Now they give you away my secret. I'm probably not going to go place close when I come. Okay. All right. All right. Where are we up to? Let's kind of just go a little further ahead. Yeah. So Rabbi Yochanan says it's Rias Panim, and Reish Lakish says Rias Panim b'Karban. Right. It's either your face comes to the Azara or you're bringing the carbon to the Azara. So now, what does this mean? So this is kind of like the boy can't get his head wrapped around this. There could be minimal, maximal times. How many times can you bring a carbon? Ikar Regal. Kuli alma lo pligi derias panim b'karban. So the Gemara says as follows. It's a difficult Gemara, so just stay with me. Ikar haregel means, according to most Rishonim, the first day of Yontif. So on the first day of Yontif, okay, it means actually bringing the actual carbon itself. In other words, that the discussion about not having a maximum time to bring it seems to be referring to the carbon. Ki pligi, the machlokas is b'shar yimos haregel. The Gemara, by the way, is going to reject this. Just understand where we're at now. With the other days of the festival, so the first day of Pesach, there is no maximum time, number of karbanos. I can bring a karban olas riyah once. I come back to the base, make the bring a second time, a third time. Or maybe
the same day.
Or maybe I should. Or maybe it means I should. The question is, the other days of the Yontif, do I have to can I bring multiple karbanos, or may I not bring multiple karbanos?
Would they still be?
No, and I already brought it the first day. Do I have to bring another one? Can I bring another one? So, in other words, am I entitled to bring another one? Is it going to be considered a carbon, or I'm just wasting my money? Or it's not a carbon, I can't bring it. So that's the Gemara says. Pligi
b'shari
b'ikar haregel kuli amalo pligi derias panim b'karban ki pligi b'shari mos haregel. The other days of the Yontif, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th day of Pesach, for example. Kol hecha da'asa v'aisi. Now, kol hecha da'asa v'aisi kuli amalo pligi de mekablina minei. So we're assuming now, if I come on the second day, I bring another carbon, it's fine. They'll take it in the base mikdash. She'll be carbon olas riyah 2, carbon olas riyah 3. It's all on my account. Ki pligi, the asi v'lo aisi. The machlokas is, what if I don't bring a carbon? Can I come into the base of mikdash? This all sounds very strange to you, doesn't it? It sounds like there's an admission price to get into the base of mikdash. First day, I surely have to bring a carbon. The second day, if I come back, so if I have a carbon, I surely can come in. If I don't have a carbon, the machlokas is between Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish, can I come into the base of mikdash without a carbon?
The Kohanim don't want to admit you.
They won't admit me.
They don't want to, because they don't get anything out of you.
We're talking to the Azara now, right?
The Azara, correct. In other words, if I don't have a carbon with me, I may not come into the Azara, the base of mikdash. I'm a person non gratis. It's like saying if I don't have
the shul, you
don't have a ticket for the high holidays, you can't get into shul.
Not for the high holidays. You do, but you lost it for the second day. That's the
question.
So correct, yes, velocity upon I come. So therefore, the first day you got to come with a carbon.
Right.
But now I already came. I wasn't ready to come. I'm coming. I'm here for the whole Yontif. I came for all of Pesach. Every day of Pesach, I want to go to Harabayas. I go up there, I celebrate, and I go home. I go to wherever I'm staying, and the next day I want to go back. I want to do this for 7 days. Do I have to bring a korban every day?
When you're Yerushalayim now, you don't go to the Kotel maybe just once, maybe you go a few times.
Right. But especially Yontif, you want to come different times. So it's not. And if you traveled, if you schlepped as a pilgrim, the pilgrims schlepped longer than we schlepped to Eretz Yisrael. We're sitting 12 hours on a plane and you're there. They walked for days, and it was hard walk. With a wagon, whatever it was.
So that they have to bring a korban for every single day?
Correct.
That's clearly impractical.
Well,
clearly difficult to do.
Correct. So the Gemara is assuming for the moment that this could be the machlokas Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish when it says ra'ayon doesn't mean either korban or your face without a korban.
Right.
So the Rabbi Yochanan Savar Riyas Panim Bazara, when it says rayon, it means you can come as many times your face can come.
Sure.
You don't have to bring a korban any time. The first day you have to bring a korban. But the second day you don't have to. Reish Lakish Amar not true. Riyas Panim a big korban. The kol emas the asi tzarach lasuye. So every time you come, you have to bring a korban. That is the premise of the Gemara at this point. It sounds like an extremely difficult premise. And Morty already quoted the pasuk of Lo Yero Panay Rekam. The Gemara is going to ask that question. The Gemara has a number of questions going to ask, and eventually the Gemara is going to throw this premise off. But just that we understand where we're at, because
it's machlokas, right? We're saying.
But what's the machlokas about?
Right.
The Gemara is saying the machlokas, and everybody agrees the first day of the Yontif, you got to come with a korban.
Absolutely.
And therefore, if you were to translate rayon for the first day, what are we talking about? Korban olas riya.
Right.
The question is the other days of Yontif.
Right.
When it says there's no minimum maximum time that I can come, does that mean me? I can always come? Or it means there's no minimum maximum time that I come bringing a korban, but every time I come I got to bring a korban to show them at the gate. That's my admission ticket. Right. So the Gemara has a number of questions. Maybe we'll just do the first one, because I think we're going to have to go over this whole piece again, because it's you got to hold cup for all this way and that way. So the Gemara says, Eis Fei Reish Lakish l'Rabbi Yochanan, Reish Lakish, who holds that it's really, which is Reish Lakish,
you have to bring a korban every time.
That you have to bring a korban every time. It says, V'lo yiru panai rekam. Right? You can't come empty. So what's the response that Rabbi Yochanan will say? Amalei bi'ikar haregel. It means you can't come empty-handed the first day. Right? In other words, of course the first day you have to bring a korban, but if you come subsequently like that, no one says every time you got to come, you got to bring a handout. Right? Once you've paid your dues, you're in. You have your year's membership. You automatically scanned as you walk through the door. You say, look up my record. I was here yesterday. So that's the first. So the question that's asked is responded to by saying, no, that may only refer to Ikar or Regel. And there'll be a number of questions like this. And finally, the Gemara it's like three or four questions, which the Gemara is going to respond the same way. The question is, it looks like you have to bring a korban. That is maybe only Ikar Haregel. But the other days we don't know, and then the Gemara is going to finally give another question that boom knocks it off. The Gemara will give a completely different mahalach how to kind of understand these things. So I apologize that next week we're going to have to back up towards the introduction of Yochanan Reish Lakish. We go through it again. We'll get it all together in one shot. Okay.